Hello, and welcome to Mainline School Night Show. I'm Wendy Greenfield, Executive Director, and it's my pleasure to be here with you today. With over 400 classes and programs that we're offering this fall, I'm sure you'll find something that you'd like to take, if not more than one thing. And you're in luck, because there's still time to sign up for many of them, and we're adding new classes every day. So please visit us at mainlineschoolnight.org and take a look at what we're offering. Visit us often so that you can be sure to catch the newest classes that we're offering for the spring and into the summer. Just visit mainlineschoolnight.org. Today, we're featuring 3 of Mainline School Night's fabulous instructors. First, I'd like to welcome Marc Ross, political science professor at Bryn Mawr College.
Hi.
Hey, Marc, how are you doing today?
Okay, it's a little wet outside, but sure, I'm fine. It's dry indoors.
Exactly, it's great to see you again.
Same here.
So Marc is a distinguished political science professor at Bryn Mawr College, and today he's going to discuss his upcoming class, Slavery in the North, Forgetting History and Recovering Memory. This class is part of a new series of classes that Mainline School Night is offering called Master Classes, which feature local college and university professors who take a deep dive into their area of expertise. Marc, you have such a fascinating background. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got interested in political science?
Well, I have done a lot of different kinds of projects in my career, and I've been lucky because Bryn Mawr was very supportive of the variety of things that interested me. I first lived in Africa in the 1960s and studied urbanization and politics in Kenya. And also examined a squatter village that grew up after independence there. Most recently, I've been interested in how culture becomes the site of political conflict. By culture, I mean beliefs and actions that don't have material value necessarily. Things like religion and art and language, and yet people feel incredibly intense about them. This most recent project I looked at was enslavement in the United States, particularly in the North. I grew up in New York. I went to public schools for 13 years. I never heard about slavery in New York. In fact, New York was the largest slave state in the North, and they had more enslaved people than any city other than Charleston, South Carolina in the mid-18th century. So I got intrigued with the question of, why did I never hear about this? Why was this not told? And it led me to a project that was in Philadelphia, which was the story of the President's House on Independence Mall. When the existence of information about where George Washington lived, which was 1 block away from Independence Hall, while he was president from 1790 to 1797, we also learned that he had 8 enslaved people who lived in the house with him over this period of time. And the question is, why was this never part of the story of Independence Mall? And groups began to organize, groups of historians, groups of civil groups in the city, and demanded that something be done. And it took 9 years, and we finally opened a memorial both to the enslaved people and to tell the story of George Washington and the practices of slavery. And I wondered why this was so delayed, but I also wondered why the discussions about it were so intense. People had very strong feelings, and there was nothing at stake in terms of material, it wasn't a question of defense contracts or buildings. It was a question of, should we tell the story? How should we tell the story? And what does it mean? And as I began my research, I not only worked with local groups in the city, but I learned about other sites of slavery in Philadelphia. The Society Hill was filled with large houses that had enslaved people in them. Out in Germantown, Cliveden House was owned by the Chew family. Chew was Chief Justice in Pennsylvania, and he owned enslaved people. But even more importantly than the ones who lived in Philadelphia on and off were the many plantations the Chew family owned in Delaware and Maryland, who moved back and forth between those locations and the city of Philadelphia. Stenton House, another historical house, that was owned by the Logan family. They had enslaved people in them. So we're learning slowly that there were many sites of slavery. And the story that Philadelphia couldn't have had any enslaved people in them because it was populated by Quakers was a mistake, because Quakers were among the largest slaveholders until the American Revolution. So what I began to do was study various ways in which the stories of enslavement in the North became known throughout New England. New England had a lot of slaves, not as many as New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and as far north as Portsmouth, New Hampshire, which had the first enslaved people there in 1647. This was a northern story, and the people in the North for a long time sold the story that was just about the South. It was the South that did it. That's not true.
Why do you think that's coming out today? And what do you think the implications are of this discovery for the events of today?
Well, I think there are a variety of things that were involved. One is we have more African-American scholars who are interested in this. And that goes back to the 1960s and 1970s. The field of history has changed. History is now much more concerned with social history, not just the great leaders at the top, but how regular people were living. So we also have ways of learning about various things. So archaeology has been very important. In New York City, in 1991, they began building a new federal office building, and to do that, you had to do an archaeological dig and see what was underneath. And the assumption was it wouldn't be very much, because that part of New York City near City Hall had been dug and redug many times and rebuilt. Well, when they started digging, they in fact found a number of enslaved people who had been interned in this area, which was in the 18th century called the Negroes' Burying Ground. And the reason they were able to find these remains is because they were down 20, 25, even 30 feet, because the area had been a swamp. That's the land they gave to the blacks to use to bury the dead outside of Wall Street. And so they were not disturbed. And there was a demand to do research on the remains, which turned out to be very interesting, and then a demand to tell the story. And right now, you can go to the African Burial Ground in Lower Manhattan, and they have an incredibly powerful exhibit and film, and a memorial there. So this has occurred throughout the North. Burying grounds are very important because they're proof that the enslaved people actually lived throughout the North.
That is really fascinating. I guess we're going to have to read your book, and we're going to have to take your class to learn more. So there's still time to sign up for your class. Just visit us at mainlineschoolnight.org. And it's slavery in the North, forgetting history and recovering memory. So Marc, thank you so much for joining us today, and I can't wait to learn more.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, take good care. Have a great day. Our next guest is Tatiana Young, an archaeologist and anthropologist. Tatiana has been teaching for mainline school night for the last 10 years, and she's taught many classes for us in a wide-ranging in a wide-ranging group of disciplines. So Tatiana, it's great to see you today, and welcome.
Hi, let me introduce myself. My name is Tatiana Zelenetskaya Young. Zelenetskaya is my Ukrainian name that I left. So I know a lot of people complaining they cannot pronounce, but that's okay. It's build their character, right, when they pronounce my last name. So I was born and raised in Kiev, which is the capital of Ukraine. I grew up during the Soviet regime, which is I'm very proud about because we have a lot of discipline. We had a hard life, and I think it's helped me tremendously, generally, to be who I am. I am anthropologist. I am archaeologist precisely. I am a Mayanist. I work in Yucatan Peninsula, and I study ancient Maya by excavating and mapping their ancient sites.
That's great. Thank you, Tatiana. I was also so impressed to learn that you speak 5 languages, that you've traveled around the world to over 50 countries. Your background is just so fascinating.
Thank you.
As a native of the Ukraine, what motivated you to pursue archaeology and anthropology as a career?
From my early childhood, I've been fascinated by archaeology. I've been fascinated by the ancient culture, and generally culture in general. I mean, and culture in general. As a young child, when I was going from Kiev to my grandmother, who was in a village where was a lot of the kurgans as the graves. Mounds graves of the Scythians, the people who were occupying the land of Ukraine earlier. So I was fascinated with those and always wanted to excavate them. I actually found a book about excavation and tried to organize a bunch of the local boys to do it with me, but no one wanted to do it. So I've always been fascinated with that, and that's always been my dream.
That's great. You have such an eclectic background with many hobbies. This semester, you're teaching archaeology in Peru for us, and you're teaching cooking of the Ukraine. In the past, you've taught belly dancing. How do you have so many interests? What's caused you to pursue such a variety of things to the point that you're such an expert you can even teach other people about it?
So I don't know. I just want to know everything, which is impossible, right? But I'm just trying to. I do not party, so I spend a lot of time studying, sewing, painting, whatever. I also do painting as well. I don't watch TV. That's going to sound really strange, but I get bored. So because I rather do something. So that's, I guess, because I'm constantly working, that's why I have time to do all those things and maybe don't sleep enough.
And the teaching's been a family affair, right? Your mom is teaching the Ukrainian cooking class with you, and your son is starting to teach for mainline school night as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess it's our family. Well, when I grew up, people only cooked at home, so this is not something like unusual. So mom cooking and I learned cooking, and my son is really good with cooking as well. Yes, obviously, family influence you greatly as what you're doing. I also because I travel a lot, because I balance for different ethnicities. That's another thing that influenced me to learn cooking and be interested in different food. I also a big advocate of people traveling and people learning different culture, because it's very important to understand that we're not the best culture. There is no the best culture. There is a different culture, and that's when you are ethnocentric, thinking that you are the best, your culture is the best, and you don't know another culture. It's bringing a lot of problems. in society. So I think one of the part of education is traveling, because you're learning different traditions, different trying different food, and so on and so on.
That's so interesting. You also showed me pictures of handmade costumes that you've made. Tell us a little about those.
This is my new hobby. I do make historical costumes. I try to stay as historically accurate as is possible. Also do the historical dancing as well. This is another thing good to learn the history, right? You do the dress, and then you learn the period. You learn that in 18th century such and such things happened. In 19th century such and such thing happened. Yeah, this is my new hobby. Absolutely love it. I didn't know I would be able to sew, but somehow it's come out. It's all about passion. I think if you have a passion, if you work hard and you don't give up, you always will get what you want. I mean, the results what you want.
That's great. Well, it seems like I'm hopeful that the world is going to open back up soon for travel. What's next on your bucket list?
I would like to go in Japan again. My son speaks Japanese and we love going to Japan. And another thing, dream of my dreams is the Eastern Island. This is things outside of everything. It's in the middle of nowhere. And I've always been fascinated with that. I read a book when I was a child and saw the picture of those giant statues they have there. And actually, my father was a photographer, and I asked him to print for me a big picture of that. And in that point of my life, I was in Soviet Union. We're not able to travel at all. So I thought this never gonna come true. And I thought I'm never gonna be able to travel, but here I am, and I'm gonna make to the Eastern Islands finally a dream of my dreams.
That's really fantastic. So this semester you're teaching archaeology in Peru for us, as well as the cooking class in the Ukraine. Is there anything you want to say about that?
Peru, one of another places that I would go tomorrow. I've been many times in Peru. I found that country absolutely fascinating. I found their traditions very fascinating, their food very fascinating, their clothes very fascinating. So I think it's very interesting class, and I think people who will join my class will really enjoy it. And I hope, I hope they learn about another cultures, as I said, because I think culture is knowing that there is another cultures and people act differently, and it's normal for them not to act like us. It's very important, especially for now, for what's happening in the world and so on.
Well, Tatiana, thank you so much for joining us today. One of the real pleasures of my job is meeting fascinating people like you. And I've never taken belly dancing before, but you never know, right?
We definitely can do it. We definitely can do it. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. So there's still time to sign up for Tatiana's classes. Just visit us at mainlineschoolnight.org and register for archaeology in Peru and cooking in the Ukraine.
Hi.
Hi. So our next and last instructor is Nancy White, an incredible instructor of many, many things in the field of technology. Nancy, welcome.
Hi, great to be here. Thanks.
It's great to see you today. So you have been teaching for Mainline School Night for many, many years. And since 2003, you've taught 274 classes. I think that may be a record.
Oh my gosh, that's a privilege and an honor for sure.
So I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about when you first started teaching technology and sort of how it's evolved over the years.
So back in 2003, I was invited to come in and provide assistance to another instructor for one of the Microsoft classes, and that was my introduction to the building and your facility and everything. And from there it just became a love of mine. And and I was asked to sign up to be an instructor. And did I have any ideas for classes? And I did. And so I've been teaching ever since then. It's been lots of fun, and I've met incredible people.
That's great. You have such a fascinating background. Why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got started, where you grew up, and then how you ended up developing an interest in the field of technology and actually starting to do that professionally?
Okay, so I started using technology in about 1995 or 6. And, you know, I sort of evolved with it from the days of Windows 95. And back then things were, of course, very different. And I started to realize that, you know, it is at first very intimidating, even back then. And I was able to bring my experience and my expertise to family and friends as it evolved. And then I realized that it was part of my nature, really, just to be able to impart this knowledge to others in a way that wasn't intimidating or threatening in any way. And so it evolved in my work and in my personal life since 1995. So I've been sort of hands-on ever since then, and was fortunate enough to be invited to play a role as a continuing education instructor at Delaware County Community College. So I've been doing that almost as long, but mainline school night longer. And so I found a very natural niche, if you will. And I really enjoy working with people to make technology a lot easier. And it's a wonderful thing for me to be able to see that transition take place between being a little standoffish or maybe a little afraid of it or confused to be able to embrace that. I worked in technology over my entire career. I worked at the Government Center in Media as a special projects coordinator for technology and created the first website for the Delaware County Courthouse and Government Center.
Wow.
Which is still there today. I created a team around that, and by the year 2000, we had the website up, and then it was our job to learn and maintain it, and add new content and reach out to the municipalities and pull all sorts of information from the community as to what they wanted on the website. So I learned a lot about the back end in terms of design and development, and got a chance to work with some really technical people and designers on the team. And that was a great foundation for me as far as web goes. The other passion that I have and love that I have is just the basic computing, just the basics, because you can't really build and learn software applications unless you really have a strong knowledge of the file and the operating system that's the base. And people realize once they have that and they have a chance to practice that, there's so much you can do on the computer. And right now, we're doing a lot of digitizing, from the catalog, and indeed starting tonight is our digital photo scanning class, where we scan photo slides and negatives. And that's been a very popular newer class at Mainline School Night, along with organizing photos. So I've always had that passion for photography sort of running parallel to my technology, and they've merged. They've merged in a way that no one ever really saw coming. So, we're all overwhelmed with a lot of photographs, and it gets a little bit unmanageable and rather frustrating, actually, because it's so easy now to take pictures, and thousands of them, right?
Yes.
You feel like you're buried in your pictures. So I've been preparing all my final preps for tonight's class. And so right now I'm focusing on web, do-it-yourself web planning, design, and maintenance, and digitizing what I like to refer to as assets, as digital assets, And so I'm a graduate of Immaculata University. I speak at their Lifelong Learning Institute. I train there for the scanning and organizing photos class, and they've invited me to do a few other things. But to tell you the truth, I'm I'm very busy at mainline school night, so I don't have a lot of time to, and a couple of classes at the college, but it's really wonderful to go to my alma mater. And people come in from all over the community in Chester County to the LLI, the Lifelong Learning Institute. But it gives me a chance to be exposed to more people, and I really miss that. It's really wonderful to have the Zoom platform and the online virtual platform, but there's nothing quite as enriching, really, and rewarding as being right there in person with people. So we're doing the best we can with Zoom, that's for sure.
Well, that's great, Nancy. You have quite a following. We're so grateful to you and the community of lifelong learners, and the fact that you've made technology so accessible to so many people on the main line. So there's still time to sign up for, is it one of your classes?
One starts tonight. It's how to scan and digitize photographs, slides, and negatives.
And your other class is on creating
Is the web design class, and that's coming up a little bit later on in the spring. It's in the catalog. Yeah,
that's great.
I guess you'll have access to the link.
Yes.
Your catalog, right?
Yeah, exactly. So thank you so much for joining us, Nancy.
You're
it's
welcome.
Really wonderful to see you again. And to those of you who have joined us today, it's great to see you. We really appreciate your joining us today. If you want to sign up for any mainline school night classes or programs, or check them out, or see what we have coming up, visit us at mainlineschoolnight.org. And I wanted to let you know one more thing before we sign off, and that is that we have our annual celebration coming up. It's going to be really fabulous on April 26th from 7:30 to 9 o'clock. It's called Inside and Out, Visions for Creative Living, and it features local luminaries, including Father Peter from Villanova University, president of Villanova, Jane Golden, founder and head of Mural Arts Program, Philadelphia, and lastly, Oliver Bass, head of Natural Lands. So we hope that you'll join us for that. It's a Zoom program. Again, you can sign up on mainlineschoolnight.org. Thank you, and we hope to see you next month.